Do you think more people suffer from depression than we realize?
In Western countries, we are a little bit more focused on individual growth. So we see more and more depression on the really young people. It's not a shame if eventually you get a divorce. In relationships, especially when things go wrong, we are not aware of the need of the other person anymore. Or we think like, yeah, screw that. Communicating less, you start working more to avoid conflict with the other person. But at the same time, if you talk with your GP, and your GP can also advise you to take certain steps. Write down a few things that you appreciate about yourself. Keep a diary. But those are little things. Like eventually, if you're in a depression, you need help. The therapist helping you to understand the patterns. If someone is drowning, that's not the right moment to learn someone how to swim. What helped me was to know, like every week, I'm gonna play tennis with a friend. To bring yourself to go outside is difficult, but if someone is expecting you, makes you feel meaningful, and that really helps.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. If you are new here, make sure to hit the subscribe so you don't miss important conversation like this. And if you have been with us for a while, feel free to share this episode with someone who might really need it today. This episode is close to my heart, especially for anyone living abroad, away from family, navigating a new culture, a new system, a new weather, sometimes feeling a little lost in the process. As expats, we deal with loneliness, winter blues, relationship struggle, work pressure, but most of us don't talk about it. We push through, we stay quiet, we rarely ask for help. So today I am sitting down with someone who has spent years helping people find their voices again. Peter worked as a communication trainer at Pamair and has a long background supporting people dealing with stress, emotional challenges, loneliness, and even complex behavior. What I love about him is his deep understanding of how the human mind works and how he listens, truly listens. So if you are struggling silently or you know someone who might be, this episode is for you. Peter, welcome. I am really glad you are here.
Good to be here.
So, Peter, before we dive in, could you introduce yourself to our listeners? Who are you? What do you do? And how would you describe the work you are passionate about?
So I'm Peter. I'm the father of two kids, daughter of 12, son of 6. And like you already said, I work at Pamair. Mostly worked in psychiatry and with people with addiction. In the last 8 years, I think, 7, 8 years, and work as a communication trainer.
Interesting. And what was the passion behind it?
I think both for the coaching and the training, the passion is to see how someone notices their space to grow and someone wants to change certain behavior, wants to take steps in life, and that's difficult. Change is always mostly takes years. So if you see someone who realized like, hey, I want this, but I can also take this step, it's amazing. I loved it.
Yeah, interesting. How did you first get into this field? What pulled you towards working with people dealing with emotional struggles, communication issues, and mental health challenges?
Well, I think it was my parents who first noticed. I had no idea. I was in high school and I had no idea what to do. And I completely took a different direction than healthcare or psychiatry. But I really liked to listen to also with my aunties who struggled quite a lot in life. And so my parents, they knew like, you're going to do social work. You're going to study social work. And I didn't notice it yet. So I think when I was about 19, I realized I had some studies, and then I realized like all of it was not my thing because I didn't work with people. And then I noticed like this is what I really love.
Interesting. So when you look back at your journey, what did those early years teach you about people and about yourself?
That's a big question. I think one of the things I learned was that kind of everyone has his own map of the world. So everyone looks with his own reality. Like sometimes we think like we all look at the same reality, but it's not. Like everyone has his own way of looking at the world. And I learned how to start with not from my own reality, but first to understand the reality of the other person, because then change can grow. Then we can have a nice conversation. So I really learned that through the years, because at the start I remember I started working in psychiatry with people with addiction, and I had the idea I need to follow rules, or I need to follow a script. I need to follow a method. But I learned, like, the one I need to follow is the client. I always need to start with that. I need to learn from the client to be able to help. And I started with myself, because I thought, yeah, I learned that.
Interesting. So my next question is, what is loneliness and what is depression?
What is loneliness and what is depression? Okay, let's start with loneliness. I don't know if it's one thing, but I think you can see it as you can be alone, but still feel comfortable with yourself. But loneliness, I think you can, even in a big group, even with friends, family, you can feel loneliness. It's a feeling inside. It's a feeling of not having a deeper connection, not having deeper relationships. And I think that's loneliness is terrible, because we need connection. It's like we need food. To be able to survive, we need to have strong relations. We need to have people around us that we can share with. So not only people, but deeper relationships, I think, and it's the miss of that.
I think, in Western culture or countries, this individualism concept that gives some more push towards the loneliness. Because if I see the data, even in Rotterdam, there was something like in between 40 to 50% people feel loneliness in this city. I'm not talking about the country.
Yeah.
So interesting.
Yeah, true.
Okay, then you can continue about the depression now.
Depression, I think like we all have our mood swings. We all feel sadness. We all have moments where we, moments where we go up and moments where we go down.
Yeah.
And that's part of life. But depression is a mood disorder. So it means that your down mood, it's not only for an afternoon or a day or 2 days. It starts to be weeks. It's the feeling of emptiness, lack of energy, not being able to concentrate anymore. And once that starts, you start sleeping worse, which makes your focus also worse. So that you can you go into a depression more and more, and it's longer than 2 weeks. If you have that, then you start to get into a depression.
Interesting. I hope our listeners can also get to know about depression, because in these Western countries, when sunlight is quite low,
Yeah.
so there is very high chances that that will also impact. I guess weather is also a quite a big component here.
Yeah.
Which impacts.
Yeah, our winters. That's why we also. It's also a thing, a winter depression.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have worked with wide range of people over the years. What kind of situations have you supported them through?
I mostly worked with people in psychiatry and with addiction, and a lot of situations. But I think one of the things is help people get out of debt. Like some people I worked with had like debts of 50,000, 100,000, which also gives a lot of stress, because the I don't know the English word, the deurwaarder, like the companies who still are saying hey, where's my money? They are sitting in front of the door, and that gives a lot of stress. So I help people how to learn, also how to open their envelopes again and not to ignore it, because that's what we do when we have a lot of stress. We kind of manage to not open the envelopes from the taxes, belastingdienst, and these kind of things.
You mean to say letters which is coming from the government and bill?
Yeah.
So I can clearly recognize, when we are too much occupied with something, for an example, my office work, then I start kind of ignoring, to open up the letters. So I can can clearly understand. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
And so the stress makes us we don't want more stress. We cannot handle it. So we kind of ignore the letters that come in. So I help people with debt, getting a job again, getting a role back in society. Can be by a job, can be by doing activities in the neighborhood, or join a club. Of course, help people with the addiction. And I think also a big part of my role was to be there, to listen, to ask the right questions at the right time. So also I would have a bond, I would have trust, and that the other people want to share, because I think it also starts with that, wanting to share, which is difficult for people with addiction, debts. When it comes to these things, it's their shame. Like you don't feel free to talk about it.
Yeah.
So you need someone who you feel like, I can share these things. This person is not going to judge me. So I think a big part of my role was that. So also eventually I could help people to make sure they get help at the right place. Like, for example, I'm not a psychiatrist. So if someone needs a psychiatrist, I need to help that person to stand open to talk with a psychiatrist.
So
or
basically,
treatment with addiction.
So basically telling them the exact way forward where they should look for the help. I mean, most of the times they are not clear about it, whom to ask help. So
And there's a lot of shame, so they wouldn't tell. Like, so if I would right away start with like, I think it's good if you go to a psychiatrist, they would throw me out of the house. Like they would get mad, or who are you to judge? Who are you to tell me what to do? So it starts with trust. It starts with the other person feeling, I'm okay who I am.
Interesting. It's a quite unique position you work in. I mean, it's kind of in between the psychiatrist, in between some other things, but in basically having a person, who can show the trust and where you can open up.
Yeah.
This is something of a very big missing part. I mean, when somebody goes through with these difficult situation, I guess. Interesting.
I think so. Yeah.
Interesting. Another follow-up question. So I remember when we were walking, and then you mentioned about. So my question coming from there. So you explain human mind so clearly. How do you describe what happens inside the brain when someone feels overwhelmed and anxious or stuck emotionally?
But I think we have a beautiful brain. Like we can rationalize things. We can be creative. We can think of new possibilities in life.
Yeah.
But we also have two other brains. Like this is kind of our new brain.
Yeah.
And the other two brains is the kind of the brain that focuses on emotions, so how we feel and how we respond to that. And the third one, which is a really strong one, is our reptile brain. The brain that decides really quickly, automatically, this is danger, or I need to run away, or I need to fight.
Yeah.
Or freeze.
Yeah.
It's good to know we have those brains.
Yeah.
And when we are relaxed, we can use our new brain. We can use the brain that makes us creative, rational thinking, think of new possibilities. But when stress becomes more, and when we get overwhelmed, or like you said, emotionally stuck, that brain doesn't function that good anymore.
Okay.
Because if stress goes up, we kind of come into our emotional brain, and if our stress is really like completely stuck, then you can see that in situations when someone really explodes, really gets mad.
Yeah.
Then it's kind of it's like the other brains, they close, and we only have our reptile brain. That's why you see, for example, in relationships that people start fighting over, and repeatedly, why didn't you put the socks in the drawer? Kind of, that you can see like, come on, it's a small thing, but it becomes really big. And that's what's like, sometimes when we get stuck, it's like stress keeps being a lot. So and even if stress is chronically, like it goes for years, it really damages the brain. So it really becomes way harder to get out of that state of wanting to fight or wanting to run away. So really quickly can be a bit aggressive, or run away, or avoid conflicts.
So basically, the function of a brain in the stressful situation does not allow you to take the correct or wise steps people have the tendency at that period of time to run away, simply, basically. Okay.
Yeah, it's like if you look at being overwhelmed and emotionally stuck, like what you can learn is before that, learn how to reflect, how to notice what happens in my mind, what thoughts do I have, what happens in my body, to kind of come back to the rational thinking and to be able to take steps. But if we don't come there, if we don't take the distance and reflect, we keep being stuck.
Yeah.
That's what a lot of times happens. It's like people, you call it kind of surviving.
Okay.
You
So
survive.
loneliness and winter depression in Netherlands. Let's talk about this.
Yeah.
Do you think Netherlands has a loneliness problem, especially in winter? Do you also think that, or it's just I'm reading out, reading in the newspapers, etc.?
I don't know about this statistics. Let's say I can imagine, like it must be. Like if you see in the winter, and I also saw it in my job, you miss sunshine, the days are shorter, you miss vitamin D, which also does something with your biological clock, like so your sleeping pattern goes different, which means also we find it harder to get outside. Yeah, and then we start feeling more lonely. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. Interesting.
I
So,
think there's a link.
okay, so answer is, I mean, if I put it another way, like a objective question, where
Yeah.
answer is yes or no. So, is winter depression is real thing?
Yes.
Okay, interesting. Okay, let's move to another question, which is about expats and isolation and how to seek help. So, my question is, you have worked with people from so many different cultures. What emotional challenges do expats especially struggle with here in this country? Why do so many expats feel lost and unsure about where to get help? Is it cultural conditioning, same, or fear of being misunderstood?
I don't know if I can only
Yeah.
imagine certain things because you also know more expats than me, I think.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that I see and that I saw before, things, I mean, it's of course the missing of the ones who are close to you.
Yeah.
It's really important to have this really strong connection with someone.
Yeah.
And then you come to another country and you can have, like, for example, my wife, she comes from Peru.
Yeah.
She has contacts and she had also contacts when she came here. But the deeper connection, that was with family in Peru, that was with friends there that she knew from high school, that she knew from when she was young. It takes time before you really get to know someone. So I can imagine that is a really difficult, that's a really challenge, how to find that. And I think also one is kind of the idea, who am I? You're somehow living in two different worlds. Yeah.
Yeah.
The feeling of like I don't belong to any of these worlds, or I belong to both of these worlds. Where do I belong? And that creates. I see you laughing, but
No, I mean, I can clearly correlate myself as well. I mean, I feel myself, I mean, in like a pendulum sometimes. I mean, I mean, in Netherlands, I mean, I mean, if you see my YouTube history, it's towards Indian content. Why I'm not looking at Netherlands content? I mean, my interest is in Indian geopolitics news.
yeah.
So I mean, there is a I mean, a clear gap or this kind of, I mean, thing, association. I see that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think when it comes to challenges, or also when it comes to things like depression, I think it's also sometimes it's because we are distracted. We are confused. I think as people, we need certain structures in our life, because then things go good. Then we can see from that structure, we can see new possibilities. But when that structure is gone, where you don't know what to look at, where do I belong? Suddenly I'm in a different culture. Everything works different. How do I stand in that? How should I stand in that? What are people expecting? That's, I mean, I can imagine it's really hard to do that, which makes it cost energy.
Yeah. So clearly there are two things, like, I mean, you miss your childhood friends, stronger connections where you can see, I mean, share, you miss your parents. I mean, parents are, I think, I mean, the biggest, I mean, strong connection. Absence of these connections, strong connections, which is missing now.
Yeah.
So yeah, that could be a real problem.
Yeah.
And the second thing which you say is, I mean, the cultural differences, you don't connect well because, I mean, you know a lot about your own country, but you are still in the new country and you don't know the rules or maybe regulation or the norms of the society.
Yeah.
And you still need to learn a new language where you, I mean, which can help you to communicate further or get into the society. So that's also a bit of barrier.
Yeah. And also, you have your own norms. When I was talking before about your own perspective, the way you look, like we grew up different.
Yeah.
And that's also beautiful because we are different and we have different beliefs because of what our parents told us, religion, how we grew up, what we saw around us, the food we taste, everything.
Yeah.
So that's a beautiful thing. And I think also you cannot change your own norms when you come to another country because you are your own person with your own beliefs. I mean, people would say like, yeah, you know, you're in Holland, you should change your... No, it doesn't work like that.
I mean, I think, I mean, people should learn, people should take it seriously. If you are looking for, I mean, a long future, then in order to get integrate or get the help from the society, it is a kind of needed thing, but people do not realize it early.
Yeah, I think I understand. It's a thing it's a needed thing to be able to also deal with it and to take steps.
Yeah.
And but I can imagine you were talking about the challenges. Can imagine that's a challenge because you are your own person with your own beliefs, with your own history. You cannot throw your history away. You are that person. You can adjust to the norms and values of another country.
I like the way you are showing the respect for those people, those who are coming from the other culture, especially from developing countries. When I talk about this, I mean, I feel like I'm coming from a developing countries and feel sometimes, I mean, I feel like, I mean, somebody from here, Dutch person, I mean, he's trying to show me the inferiority that you are coming from developing countries and then you must learn rather than in a requesting way, pursuing or maybe explaining. Learning Dutch would be quite helpful. So these are the two way of saying that.
Yeah.
Interesting. So my second part of the question was, so we have established, I mean, people feel loneliness, etc. and these problems, but how, or maybe suffer with the depression, these kind of problems. So the question is for expats community or expats, how should they look for the help? What are the possible options?
I think that
because I mean there is a lot of shame involved. But what is it? What is their entry point? How should they start getting the help? So that's why I mean I think this is the most important question of this podcast.
Yeah. If it's possible to share that, to start with sharing that in your own community, that's beautiful. But if there's too much shame or pressure or something that doesn't make you share what you're dealing with, I think then it starts with going to the doctor. Like sometimes we have the idea like the doctor is the one who has to look at our blood pressure. But the doctor is also the one who knows how to ask the right questions, to know like this fits for you, this help, to give you the right advice. And if you go to the doctor, also in the practice of the doctor, the huisarts.
GP, general practitioner, basically.
GP, yeah. That's called in Dutch praktijkondersteuner huisarts, POH. And that person is like a social worker that you can have talks with, who is not allowed to share that, only with the doctor. Or you can assume you're in a safe environment to share your trouble. So I think that those are first steps that you can take. Also, the praktijkondersteuning van de huisarts is also free. I think that's also an important thing to know. Like it doesn't cost you any from your health insurance or your own risk. It's completely free. Let's say that's also a too big step. There's phone numbers that you can call. You can find them on the internet. Like I think it's called luisterend oor. Uit je bol is also one. And if you have like a deal with depression or psychological problems, or you're emotionally stuck, those phone numbers you can call. There's someone who listens to you, someone who asks you questions. It can be also anonymous. You don't have to say your name, or which can be like a first step if you find it like difficult to go to a doctor. Just call.
So interesting. I mean, I think this is a very important point for our viewers or listeners. So, if any person is feeling isolated, a bit of depression symptoms, I would not say, I mean, 100% depression, but depressive symptoms, or and it is for a long period, a little bit long period of time. So you should not wait. You have the option of going to a GP and explaining the things. If you don't feel comfortable, then you have a phone number which you mentioned. I will try to put it on the screen as well.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So you can call them and anonymously you can share.
Yeah.
So that's a good point. I mean, at least, I mean, if you feel shame, then still you can share it with.
Yeah.
And then that person can guide you further. I mean, how to move on from here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And also, I think a doctor knows more how what routes to take.
Yeah.
But that person can at least listen and eventually maybe give some advices. But it starts with someone who can objectively, like without. Sometimes we see with friends and family, they say like, yeah, but what you should do, and if you want space to like I said with the brains, like if you're emotionally stuck,
Yeah.
you need someone who just shut their mouth and listens, so it can go down. You feel more free to think.
Interesting.
That's how we can take and then a lot of times it's also easier to take a step to, for example, to go to the doctor.
Yeah.
Or to confront the person you're having trouble with.
Yeah, I think there is a one more gap which I feel. I mean, since we are coming from not all the expats, at least, I mean, I'm coming from India, so it's a developing nation. Over there, healthcare works differently.
Yeah.
Here it works differently. In developing countries, I mean, I'm generalizing it. The mental health is being taken as a like a shame if you have a mental health issue, etc. So it's considered as a same, and I think, I mean, here it is not. It is a little bit more accepted, I would say.
Yeah.
That it's fine. I mean, people can get into stress and get minor mental stress, etc. So for those people, those who are living here, the entry point or maybe the first step. I mean, if I would ask you, I mean, if somebody is stuck, isolated, loneliness, depressed, maybe burnout, etc. That's most of them, they are not aware. I mean, how to basically say this out loud, and what is a proper way, I mean, to start with, to get their recovery. So for them, I mean, if I take your answer, so this calling that number, or maybe start with GP and start expressing what exactly they are facing.
Yeah. And I think it's also maybe the GP or the
POH.
Yeah.
In English, POH.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that person also is a little bit more able to ask the right questions. Like sometimes it's hard to say what you're dealing with if you're emotionally stuck. It's a mess in here.
Yeah.
So you need someone who makes sure you can express yourself, and you can just, I don't know, like talk, scream, blame the whole world, and then bring it down to like, okay, what can I do? To put it in, like to bring some structure in it, so you can also understand yourself. What am I dealing with? So I think that's a good first step. Yeah.
Okay. I think, I mean, it will help our viewers or listeners, those who are going through with this situation. So let's move to the further. My question is towards now relationships, conflict, and divorce. Divorce rates are high in many Western countries. And from your perspective, why is that happening? When couples, especially expat couples, begin to struggle, what early signs do they usually ignore or underestimate? When a relationship hits a rough season, especially during winter, what can couple realistically do to reconnect or seek help?
Okay. I'm thinking of two things. I think the first thing is, it's socially in society, it's more accepted. It's not a shame if eventually you get a divorce. It's a shame if you don't deal with it maybe in a way that's good for the kids. Like sometimes you have like fighting divorces, like that really are damaging the kids. But in our society, like marriage is quite accept it. So that's one thing, which also makes it easier to get a divorce. The same what you see sometimes, I think, in countries where divorce is like really like a shame or even a punishment for it. People come in here, they find it easier to get divorced, like sort of like sometimes like finally free. So that's one thing. The second one is that I think in Western countries, we are a little bit more focused on individual growth.
Okay.
Like, if I look at my life, like I love focusing on my kids, my family, my parents are important, my wife. At the same time, what is important for me is like, what steps do I take in life? Do I do what I enjoy? Do I feel like I'm growing, or do I feel like I'm going back? And I think also in Western countries, it's sometimes easier to focus on your own personal growth instead of, hey, we do this as a community.
Okay.
And your second question, I think there's a lot of reasons, but I think a lot of times it goes a little bit unnoticed. Like there's sort of starting little cracks in your marriage or when you're a couple. Like, for example, you start communicating less. You start working more to avoid conflict with the other person. You start focusing way more on your own interest instead of the interest of the other person. You can see it sometimes, like if I think if couples are doing really fine, they come, let's say they come home from work, or one person comes home from work, and they share, like, how was your day? They start asking each other a question, like, how was it? And they listen. I think once it starts going wrong, you do that less and less.
Yeah.
You're less focused on the other person, and maybe also talking with the other person starts giving you a little bit stress. You cannot always pinpoint it, but you see that those little cracks are starting. There starts to be an emotional distance a bit more. You start focusing more on little frustrations that you didn't have before. Like what I said, like, why are the socks not in the drawer? Or so what you see is like, at the start, everything is new. You start like you see everything is like, we talk about the pink clouds.
Yeah.
Everything is beautiful, and on one moment, well, those clouds go away, but you still see the positive in the other person. You maybe have some frustration, but still you see your partner as like, she fulfills me, or we grow together because we get the best out of each other. You see the beauty in the other person.
Yeah.
That slowly starts to go away. Like on one moment you start to look more to and less of the positive things, to the negative. Why didn't the person do this? Why is he or she coming late home? Why this? Why that? Why that? Why that? And in the moment, like, that's also how our mind works. Like sometimes we don't really notice, but we start. We have our own perception of the world. So we look at the negative, or we look at certain things that can go wrong, instead of the beauty of it. So to your question, what are early signs? That was your question, right?
Yeah.
I think those are early signs.
Yeah, and then follow-up questions. Question is basically, how should they seek help? I mean, if their problem is really, I mean, getting more serious, or it's happening again and again, because it also, I mean, impacts kids.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what is the way forward? I mean, how should they? What are the different ways? I mean, since they don't know the norms and how to deal with it, so should they go to their GP, or should they call someone to whom? I mean, how? I mean, because I mean, it could be a very tense environment.
Yeah.
So what are the steps they can take? I mean, and I find this, I mean, if I read the news, etc., if I meet with a lot of different people, then it is a quite common problem. And people, those who do not belong to this country, they don't know, I mean, how to deal with it.
Yeah. If you're early, you can still see, like, how can we communicate with each other? But sometimes it already takes too long. So it became a certain structure, the negative pattern. The assuming the other person doesn't, it's not going to say something nice.
Yeah.
And then I think you need someone else. So you can share that maybe with family or friends, but if that's not possible, you start with your GP. I think you can also skip the GP and go right away to a marriage counselor, like relationship therapy.
Okay.
But at the same time, if you talk with your GP, your GP can also advise you to take certain steps.
Okay.
Or say like, I have contact with these relationship therapists. I think if I listen to your trouble, this would be maybe a good one.
Okay.
So that's also, mostly it starts with the GP. That's why they're so busy.
Okay, interesting. I mean, for our viewers or listeners, I mean, if you are stuck with this problem, then you should start with GP and don't feel shame and explain the problem because it is also impacting your kids.
Yeah.
And the other thing which you also mentioned about the relationship therapy. What exactly is this? It seems like, I mean, doesn't seems like a serious thing. I mean, can you just for our viewers or listeners, can you give a little bit more light upon this? I mean, if you are aware of it or have read about it, that how it could be effective and what exactly it does. Because I mean, in Eastern sphere of the globe, these things are not being considered as useful.
Yeah.
So give some more, I mean, details. I mean, whether it is how much useful it could be and how much scientifically proven. And I was reading about that EFT, how to say in Dutch,
AFT.
AFT.
Yeah.
So that has been quite a benchmark technique or kind of therapy.
Yeah.
So maybe you could give some insights about this so that, I mean, our viewers or listener can get, I mean, if they need, they can get more serious about it.
Okay. I think with AFT and system therapy, for example, like
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if there are some others as well,
Yeah.
so you can generalize a bit, but I mean, give a bit of seriousness, how it can really be helpful.
I think it starts with the therapist helping you to understand the patterns. If you get in a fight over and over again, or in relationship troubles, it can be in different ways. This starts to be a certain pattern, and that goes like it can go that you come home from your job, you see that's a mess in the house, you start saying like you start being frustrated. The other person feels like you never listened to me, didn't you know how much? And then those things happen in the head, and it's like
It's a circular.
It's a circular thing. Like it keeps coming back and it becomes stronger, stronger. Like what you have sometimes when you make music and you have like the versterker, the ones that makes the sound harder.
Yeah.
It's like woo, 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 woo. It becomes harder and harder. So to understand how this pattern is formed, you can also see like where are there moments that I can step out of the pattern. If you come home and you see something that frustrates you, take a step back, go outside, come back inside and ask a question. Like you can learn like little things that can change the pattern. And then also what happens is like when you ask a different question, your partner, let's say, also gives a different response. Because that's communication. Like you ask something different, you always get a different response.
Yeah.
And the ideas of this person always says this or never, that's bullshit. If I say something else, let's say now I give you a different answer, you will also respond different.
Yeah.
And back to the why, the seriousness of the relationship therapy.
Yeah. Are they scientifically proven or not? How much effective it could be? So that seriousness, I mean,
I think it's proven enough that AFT and system therapy, it's proven enough, like how the system works. And
system therapy.
Yeah, it's like we are a system, like in my home, my daughter, my son, my wife and me, we are a system. But to that system also belongs my parents, her parents, etc. And in that system is the moment I change something or maybe I say something, then I have a discussion with my wife that has an influence on my kids. Always.
Yeah.
Because my kids will feel it.
Yeah.
My kids maybe are not able to say yet like, hey, what you were saying, I don't think that was a nice thing because my kid is 6 and my kid's 12.
Yeah.
But they will show it in different reactions. So maybe on another moment, my daughter or my son will do something that's not really nice. But a lot of times that comes from frustrations that are built up or from noticing this is not a safe environment.
Yeah.
So System therapy is kind of like it bounces so through the in the system, in the family. And to be aware of that, you can also change that system. You can change those structures. That goes maybe a bit too complicated. Like for example, that kids are eventually always loyal to their parents. Always. So to understand that can help you maybe also to change your reaction, to know how the system works. So yeah, I think, I mean, it's proven enough already for years that it makes sense and that it helps.
Okay. And if you can quickly just give a bit of highlight about AFT, a technique. So when people will have a little bit grasp what exactly it is and how it can be helpful.
I think there's different ways how to, I mean, myself, I didn't work with AFT.
Yeah.
So I know I read about it. I also had relationship therapy. So I also got a little bit familiar with AFT.
Yeah.
I think there's different ways to work with it. For example, in a relationship therapy, you can work with cards because that's sometimes easier to talk about. Cards with pictures and emotions. And then the therapist would ask, like, for example, if you, from a certain situation, you always take one situation where you are fighting, for example.
Yeah.
It builds up, you're in the car and you start nice, but after an hour, feels like you're in the biggest fight of your life. So this therapist can take that example and say like, okay, so how did you feel in this situation? Take the cards. Well, I felt like she didn't listen, or I felt pain. I felt completely ignored. I felt mad, etc. And then the therapist could also ask like, and at that moment, what do you need from your partner? Well, I need, so there's also cards, you can take, like, I need that she's giving me space to think. Because right away I need to come up with an answer, but I need to think. Also, we respond in a certain way, but there's always a need behind it. And in relationships, we don't, like, especially when things go wrong, we're not aware of the need of the other person anymore. Or we think like, yeah, screw that. I have it hard enough. Like, but the other person has needs. We both have needs in our relationship. So if AFT, it focuses on a situation. From there, like, how did it make you feel, and what's the need under that? That's a way of working with it.
Okay. So I think, I mean, just a minute to interrupt.
Yeah.
AFT, it's like emotionally focused therapy. That's its name. And when I was reading about it, so interesting part is, so here it's basically this technique helps you. What is my understanding? You can correct me as well if I'm not understanding well. So it basically this EFT technique helps you to basically reconnect with your partner at emotional level, which was missing earlier.
Yeah.
And understanding for everything, whenever you are not liking any reaction, there is something else, emotional demand, which she or he is not expressing.
Yeah.
And understanding that emotional question or desire or expression. So that is something, I mean, EFT helps you to reconnect with your partner at emotional level.
Yeah.
I think, I mean, that would be helpful for our listeners.
Yeah, but it's exactly what I mean. Yeah. To understand that need of the other person. Yeah.
So do you think more people suffer from depression than we realize? I mean, how much is in the statistics available, or in general we think?
When it comes to suffering from depression, you can look up statistics, but mostly when we talk about it, we also say like, these are the statistics, but there's way more, because there's so many people are depressed who are not yet getting the help they need, or they how to say that they stay under the radar.
Because I think they feel shame to express about it, and it can come from the cultural point of view.
Ashamed, different reasons, or also like if you're really in a depression, you don't have the energy to get help.
Yeah, that's also a big
You,
no.
you don't want to. What you want is to shut your eyes, to lay in bed, and you feel empty unless you feel a day a little bit better. But if you're really depressed, you're not going to get out of bed and think like, okay, today I'm going to go to a doctor.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, with a depression, you need to be maybe lucky you're on time, or someone in your network says you're going to a doctor, and I'm taking you.
So answer to this question is yes.
Yeah.
How much we understand? I mean, society has more depression problem. How much we get to know? It's more than that.
Yes, and also it's constantly changing. Let's say now we see more depression on the young people.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, especially with the whole. I'm not going to get into that, but like the whole social media world, which is kind of it's distracting sometimes and addictive. So we see more and more depression on the really young people. So that's sometimes it's also changing in society.
Okay. So, an additional question on this. What helps someone break the fear and take the step to reach out in a single line? I mean, if you, I think, I mean, you have answered, I think, this question earlier as well.
And to break like someone
Who's feeling loneliness and depression, and as you said, I mean, he will not have the energy to go outside and get the help at that moment. So, what can help him? I mean, or maybe
I
to
think,
break that loop.
yeah. It depends in what stage someone is. You know, like how heavy is the depression? Is it starting or and mostly you only you notice it really when you're in the depression. You need to be lucky that you have someone around you who is there for you and who really accepts you the way you are and knows how to listen, knows how to not right away come with advices, not how to tell you how to deal with your life. So you need to be lucky when it comes to that, because like I can name a lot of little things that can help. But if you're really in a depression, you probably don't take those steps. But what can help is, especially when it's like a temporary thing, like make sure you keep contact with people. For example, I had a time where I really felt terrible in the winter. I didn't really notice it. I was a student and I would lock myself up in my room. What helped me was to know, like every week, I'm going to play tennis with a friend. Every Monday, I had a date. Every Monday, play tennis with a friend. Or to bring yourself to go outside is difficult. But if someone is expecting you, voluntary work, anything that makes you feel meaningful, that really helps. Even if it's 1 hour per week, start with like a little thing that you're connected to, because it doesn't come really from yourself. So make sure you have a date, a moment where someone is expecting you to go there. Other things like talking helps, walks, or make it, if you really cannot go outside, that means it's already far enough to that you really need help from someone else. You can start also writing down only small things, like at the end of the day, write down 3 things that you're thankful for. Or write down a few things that you appreciate about yourself. Keep a diary. But those are little things. Like eventually, if you're in a depression, you need help.
Okay, interesting. But still, I mean, if you are just in a bit early stages, so the good thing is, I mean, just be more active. What I understood from you, go for a walk and try to connect with your friends or something, so that you are, I mean, not exactly expressing your loneliness symptoms or depression symptoms, but you are exchanging the idea so that you are busy.
Yeah.
So try to make yourself little bit busier. Well, it is difficult, but still it is good. And maybe, as you mentioned, I mean, do the voluntary work. This voluntary work, I mean, I think, I mean, I need to make a short. I mean, this is a quite unique thing. I mean, in Netherlands, a lot of people can do voluntary work and they can give their name and then it can be assigned to them. This is something, I mean, I haven't seen in my country too much. Maybe it is, but that's a unique thing. So you can, I mean, if you want to get involved yourself, so you can also do voluntary work. So that's also a good tip in this case. And writing down, as you said, that's also a good thing. I mean, to feel a little bit what you did good. So it will give a little bit more like a meaning of that day.
Like I'm saying that because that's maybe like a little step that you can do. There's also other things like mindfulness, But
They are quite advanced. I mean, I think, I mean, at that stage, I mean, small steps are needed so
yeah,
that you can come to that stage that you can think about
yeah,
mindfulness.
yeah. Yeah, true. But I really think like if you're forced to go outside to see a friend or to go to the supermarket or to go just for a walk, when you're really depressed and you lay in bed, you don't want to get out of bed, you don't take that step. You also don't see the point in it.
Yeah.
Why would I feel terrible. There's guilt, there's emptiness, there's really heavy depressions. Also, the feeling of suicide and not wanting to live anymore. But once you start moving, you start seeing different things. Andere, like in our brain, literally different kind of stofjes, how to say that? Like endorphine, we start to feel better.
Okay. Okay.
So a doctor can also, like
Dopamine regeneration.
dopamine, yeah. So a lot of doctors, they give antidepressiva, like a medication.
Uh-huh.
I've also seen in my job that sport really helps you also not needing a lot of times the medication.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Yeah, it kind of does the same a lot of times.
Okay.
Sport, I think, is better than having to take medication. I mean, if you need it, it's fine.
Okay. So you have also worked with people struggling with anger and even violent behavior. How do you approach that as a professional?
I think it starts with not to start judging or assuming why that person is aggressive or violent, because then that mostly makes sure that someone is more aggressive.
Yeah.
It also depends on, like, you got aggression from someone being frustrated, like pressure, stress is too much. And then, well, like the clients that I work, like sometimes I had clients who were like around me breaking stuff, destroying, but that was their own frustration. So I need to let the person be and then learn how to listen and then ask the person like, okay, and what now? What are we going to do? But sometimes also you have aggression that's pointed to other people, and that's sometimes like manipulation, threatening, and that's what someone does to reach a goal. And then you need to really be sure I know where my boundary is. If someone starts to threaten me, I right away have to say like, okay, stop. You need to stop here. So don't get into a discussion. Stay away from advices, because then you come into a discussion. Be neutral. Try to be neutral in this context, but make sure the person knows you need to stop here. So, or we talk further in a normal, relaxing way, or we stop to talk now and you go away, or I go away.
Okay. So interesting thing is here, I mean, which I'm saying, that ability to listen without judgment and setting the boundary. I mean, if it is not going on a right.
If someone is pointing the aggression to you, in a like sometimes manipulating, or also with gossip, but that's a different kind of aggression. That's not being because frustration went too high or stress.
Yeah.
That's because someone wants to reach a goal. I had that a lot in my work with people with addiction. They started manipulating, threatening, whatever. They did everything to make sure that I would give money so they could buy the thing they needed for the addiction. And it's a different kind of violent behavior, because sometimes it's okay if someone gets mad. Well, it's okay if someone gets mad. Sometimes it needs to get out. It's not nice if he's destroying his own stuff or she, but if it needs to get out, yeah.
Okay.
The sentence I always keep in mind when it comes to these kind of things is like, if someone is drowning, that's not the right moment to learn someone how to swim. So if you look at the three brains, if someone's really stressed, like really like an explosion, screaming, destroying things, that's not the moment to say like, relax, sit down. No, don't teach that person anything. Just be there. And it's really difficult, like even for social workers, because you see someone, sometimes social workers say like, hey, not that voice, lower your voice. But if someone needs to scream, someone needs to scream. So yeah.
It's challenging. It's
challenging, I know.
So let's move towards the last question. Why do families sometimes fail to support someone who is depressed and even when they want to help? So they want to help, but they couldn't help.
It's a difficult one, like, because as family, we are so, well, if you look at the system, we're so connected.
Yeah.
And which makes it really hard to let someone be because you want the best for someone.
Mm-hmm.
So if you see someone suffering
Mm-hmm.
because of depression or loneliness, you want to help the person, you want to protect the other person, which makes sense, but that mostly makes things worse. Because you want to shake that person, like, come on, you can do more. Or we go to the complete other side, like, oh, it's so terrible. As family, I think what we need to do is just show the other person, like, hey, I see that you're, like, compassion, like, I see that you're struggling, but I still love you. That this person feels like I'm still wanted. Because that's the thing, like, sometimes the family, out of protection, out of good intentions, start saying, like, you should do this, you should do that, that's better for you. You start feeling unwanted, or you start feeling like, oh yeah, I'm the shitty one who does it wrong. So you're already feeling guilty, and the guilt becomes more because your family is like this and this and this. So as family, if you want to help someone, put clear boundaries. That's always important. But besides that, be there.
Okay.
I
Interesting.
mean, I also had moments in my surroundings with friends that besides listening and being there, that I said to someone like, but now you're going to a doctor. No, Baba, no, now you're going to a doctor. I can join you, but you're going. That's good to put a boundary, but not from good intentions, starting giving all the advices that creates a mess.
Okay. That's an important point. So, final hopeful questions for someone listening right now who feels lonely, overwhelmed, or stuck. What's the one small or practical step they can take today?
I think the one step is make sure you go outside and meet someone that you feel comfortable with.
Okay, interesting. So, Peter, thank you so much for being here, sharing your experience and compassion. These conversation matters, especially for people who feel like they are struggling quietly. To everyone watching or listening, please remember you don't have to go through things alone. Asking for help is a sign of strength. Even one small step can change your whole direction. If this episode resonated with you, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who might need it. It really helps more people find support through conversation like this. Take care of yourself, be kind to your mind, and I will see you in the next episode. Bye bye.